So this is the 2026 Wildly Clo Growing Planner. I designed this planner to be as durable as possible. The cover is an antibacterial matte cover. It was the most durable one that I could find for this particular kind of size and design. It's spiral bound, which is made of metal, so again, that's hopefully more harder wearing. And I've also put these little metal corners on because sometimes with books they fray at the edges when they get worn, so I just wanted them to be a little bit more durable because some people will keep this in their shed or their greenhouse, which is fine. I do recommend you keep it kind of somewhere warm and dry because while I have made every effort without layering it all in plastic sheets to make it tough, tough enough to have out and about with you, the pages are still made of paper, even though they are kind of borderline card. So if you look after it, then you'll get the most out of it. It is not waterproof, but it has been designed with durability in mind. So let's have a little look inside. So the first few pages are just a bit of an intro, a bit of a welcome, and a little bit of a how to use the planner. Then we start getting into the nitty-gritty. We're straight into it. Talks you through how to understand your soil, because soil is going to be the building blocks for a successful garden or plot. There's then a page on how to test your soil. So if you're looking at your soil and you think, I've got no idea what type of soil that is, then I've put some information in here that takes you step by step, different tests that you can do, from squeezing it to sending it off to be tested in a lab. So on the next pages, following on from that, I go into organic material. What is it and how do we add it to our soil? Also a little section on crop rotation. I didn't want to get into that too much, but I did feel it was important to mention it. There's a section on once we know our soil type and the soil's approximate pH. The next page sort of goes through 3 different groups. Crops that prefer slightly acidic soil, crops that prefer slightly alkaline soil, and then crops that don't really mind. Then we have a few pages of various tables. This particular table goes through beginner-friendly crops. So if you are just starting out, these are the crops that I would highly recommend you give a go in your first season. I've also outlined the planting time because I know there can be a little bit of confusion around when things get planted, but these are the planting times that I would recommend for the UK. And there's also a section on the harvesting time, and there's also a section on notes on care for these plants. Moving on to this table, there's a table on more advanced crops, things like asparagus, aubergine, sweet corn. These aren't impossible by any means. I've grown lots of these this year myself, but they're just things that maybe take a little bit more care, a little bit more attention than these that you can kind of set and forget most of the time. Next couple of pages, we've got a table on crops that are expensive to buy but easy to grow. These are some different interesting things like golden beetroot, patty pan squash. Then kind of off the back of that, talk about my middle name, which is companion planting. My top picks for companion flowers. I've outlined all the kind of most common unpopular crops that I could think. Whole section on there on how to put the 3 sisters in your garden or your plot, because it's quite effective and it's pretty cool to watch it all working together. And this is kind of where we get into you putting your info into here. So I think it's really important that you kind of set out from the start of making a list of things that you actually want to grow. But it essentially takes you step by step on going out. If you've just taken on a plot, you're just redoing your garden, what do? You take this planner out and you follow these steps. And then we get to the juicy part. This is a full 12-month sowing guide. There's a little key as well. So undercover, and I tell you what undercover means, directly sown, and I tell you what that means. And these little keys will really guide you throughout each month. I've also given you my preferred varieties because there's often quite a lot of different varieties to choose from and it can be a bit overwhelming. So if you are just starting out, this is all here laid out for you. It should be nice and easy, plug and play, can't go wrong. Then the all-important frost dates, which then brings us on to the next section. So while it is nice to have this plug and play, done for you guide, there is also a bit in here about building your own, because I think if you're someone who has a little bit of gardening experience and you want to kind of have a go at building your own personal sowing schedule based on your preferences, which I would encourage you to do, there is a whole section here on it. So again, there's steps on how to do that. There's also a section on succession planting, as well as having a section in the planner on this. I have put together a 30-page PDF guide that goes through the nitty-gritty, bit-by-bit steps that you need to put together your own succession planting plan. Again, if that's not your vibe, that's not your thing, you're not that geeky, get it for free anyway. I've picked lots of common crops and I've put the succession intervals in there. Here's where you can put together your own sowing schedule. What I recommend you do is before the start of 2026, go through and you write each thing that you want to sow each month. Chilies or tomatoes and aubergines. Then you can, in here, write the date that you've sown and you can tick it off. So this will all be full by the end of 2025, so you'll know what you're going to sow each month, and then you can go through and tick it off. Then the next section is a large, chunky part on a little drawing area. These 2 pages teach you how to use the next section. Then we move on to the exciting part, the bit that took most of the time, really. For every month, there's an overview. In that overview, there are some key tasks. There's an idea of what to sow, what to harvest, and some tips or reminders for that particular month. There's also a little space to do some reflecting, if that's your thing. I would encourage you to do that because your memory is not as good as you think it is, and it's good to have as much information as possible. Then we also have a list of monthly tasks. Now, at the top, there are essential tasks, things that are kind of non-negotiable. And then there's also some nice to have, so things on soil and bed preparation, maintenance, some quick tips. Each month they've been split into weeks, and on each week, they've been labelled as week 1, 2, etc. There's a section to write the date. There's also a section to write the jobs list. So this can be inspired by the monthly tasks page before, or it can be kind of tailored to your plot or your garden. There's a section on the week's weather because that's important for reflection. There's also a little gardening challenge or idea because I thought it'd be nice to have something each week that you could do in the garden, either by yourself or with your children, to keep things a little bit different and interesting. And there's also a section here if you wanted to further break down on a week by week basis what needs sowing and the date it's been sown. There's also a little section here to reflect or make notes on the season. So that is a theme throughout the whole planner. Obviously some weeks they're going to fall over 2 different months, but I'll have put that in. Then at the end of each month, there's a space for reflection. So this is over 2 different pages and there's 6 different sections to complete. And then that just continues. So I've sort of carried it over into the first week of January. Then at the back of the planner, I've popped a feeding login. So that is over a couple of pages there. There's also a section on logging your harvest, because I think it's a good idea to weigh or measure or count how many different crops you've had from a particular plant. That goes over 2.5 pages. There's also a notes section there for making notes on your harvest, good or bad. There is a disease and pest log. Then after those pages, we've got a budget tracker. And then I've just put a few extra miscellaneous lined pages at the back for writing anything else that you would like to make a record of if you feel you've not got enough space within the rest of the planner. So that is it. As well as this, it will come with a digital copy, so you can use it out and about on the plot on your phone or your iPad if you don't want to take the book with you. You will also get the how to start an allotment from scratch guide. You'll also get the companion planting guide and the succession planting guide. And you'll also have a nice picture of me on the back. So that is the 2026 Growing Planner.